You're sitting at the kitchen table with an old calculator, a cup of cold coffee, and a piece of paper worth $500,000. In theory, your marriage is over. Love has turned to resentment. But the real problem now isn't a broken heart, it's broken math. Your ex-spouse has given you a clear ultimatum. I want my share of the house money now, or I'll force the sale and kick you out. You look around. You love this house. It's the only point of stability left for you and your children amidst the chaos of divorce. You think, I'm not leaving. I'm buying out their share. I'm staying. The solution seems magical and obvious, a cash-out refinance. The plan is simple. You take out a new loan from the bank, take the net value of the house, equity, pay your ex-spouse to leave, and the house becomes 100% yours. It seems like the perfect winning scenario. But what you're about to discover is that cash out in times of high interest rates and volatile markets is a golden trap. It's a mirage in the financial desert that leads thousands of divorced people straight to the abyss of foreclosure. Most people enter this battle thinking they're fighting for their house, but in reality, they're fighting against a calculator that has already decided they've lost. Let's unpack the lie you tell yourself. You think your house is worth $600,000 because you saw a similar house for sale on the street above 6 months ago. You owe the bank $300,000. In your mind, there's $300,000 of free money, equity, in there. You think, I'll give $150,000 to my ex and keep the rest. The problem? The bank doesn't live in your world of hope. The bank lives in the world of LTV, loan to value, and DTI, debt to income. When you confidently call your bank manager to ask for refinancing, the first bombshell drops, the interest rate. The old mortgage, which you paid jointly, had a 3% interest rate. The new mortgage, which you'll be paying alone, has a 7.5% interest rate. Do the math with me. The old payment was $1,800. The new payment, to cover the old debt, plus the money to pay your ex plus closing costs, will jump to $4,200. The bank manager asks the fatal question, what is your gross monthly income? Remember, your ex's income no longer counts. You're flying solo. The manager types in the numbers, pauses dramatically and says, I'm sorry, your DTI, debt-to-income ratio, has blown. You don't qualify for cash out. The loan has been denied. The silence on the line is deafening. Your master plan to keep the house has just been murdered by the reality of compound interest. But you don't tell your ex. You buy time. You say, it's almost ready, just a few more paperwork. You lie because you're panicking. Meanwhile, your ex-spouse isn't stupid. He notices the delay. He wants his money to rent a new apartment, buy a new car, start his new single life. His patience runs out. And this is where the war shifts from bureaucratic to nuclear. Your ex's lawyer files a petition with the court called a motion to compel sale. Basically, he's asking the judge to take the house from you, forcibly put a for sale sign in the yard, and use the money to pay everyone else. For you, who wants to stay in the house, this is a declaration of war. It's an invasion. Before I tell you how you're going to try to sabotage this sale and how it's going to backfire, I need to ask our community a brutal question. Comment below, house, if you would fight to the end to keep your children's home, or money, if you would sell everything quickly to get rid of your ex and the debt fast. I want to see who's sentimental and who's pragmatic here. And if you're enjoying this dose of reality, leave a like. This helps the channel grow and save people from costly mistakes. The threat of a forced sale creates a toxic environment within the home. You still live there. Your ex wants to sell. The real estate agent calls to schedule viewings. What do? The inner saboteur awakens. You purposefully leave the dirty dishes in the sink before the viewing. You forget to mow the lawn. You let the dog bark during the buyer's viewing. Your distorted logic is, if no one wants to buy the house, the judge will have to let me keep it and try to refinance again. But you're playing with fire. The real estate market doesn't forgive sabotage. If the house doesn't receive offers, the price drops. If the price drops, the equity, that money you were going to use to pay your ex, disappears. And in the middle of this cold war of sabotage and bank denials, something terrible happens. Something that you two, distracted by mutual hatred, forgot to monitor: the current mortgage. Who's paying this month's $1,800 payment? You say, I'm not going to pay it all myself if he's going to take half the profit. Your ex says, I don't live there anymore. Why would I pay the electricity bill and the mortgage on a house you're occupying? Result, nobody pays. The first month passes. The bank's yellow letter arrives. The second month passes. The phone starts ringing. You're so busy fighting in court over who gets the profit from the sale that you've forgotten there will be no profit if the bank takes the house first. The cash out was denied. The forced sale is stalled because of your sabotage. And now, the third player has entered the game, the foreclosure department. They don't send emails. They send a notice of intent to accelerate. This means the bank no longer wants the overdue installments. They want the total debt. Now, the entire $300,000. Panic sets in. Your buying time strategy has just turned into a ticking time bomb. In the next chapter, we'll see what happens when the home appraisal comes back much lower than you anticipated, creating the dreaded appraisal gap, and how a simple signature can transform a $500,000 asset into an unpayable debt overnight. The math is going to get bloody. The phone rings. It's the real estate agent your defense attorney recommended. You answer with your heart in your mouth, hoping for good news. You've decided to put the house up for sale, not because you wanted to, but because the bank's threat has become too real to ignore. In your head, and in the head of your greedy ex-spouse, the house is worth $600,000. After all, Zillow says so. The neighbor sold for that last year. You've already mentally spent that money. You planned to pay off the $300,000 debt and walk away with a fat $150,000 check to start your life over. But the broker's voice on the other end of the line is grim. We received the appraisal report. You need to sit down. The market has changed. Interest rates have risen. Nobody is buying expensive homes as easily as they did in 2021. Plus, remember that maintenance you put off because of the post-divorce depression? The old roof, the stained carpet. The appraiser saw it all. The verdict, $480,000. The world stops. It's not $600,000. It's $480,000. $120,000 of imaginary assets just evaporated in a second. This is what we call the appraisal gap. The math of your divorce just broke down. If you sell for $480,000, you have to pay 6% commission to the brokers, $28,800. You have to pay 3% closing costs, $14,400. You have to pay the bank debt, $300,000, and the accumulated late fees with penalties, $25,000. What's left? Almost nothing. That pot of gold that motivated the whole legal battle has turned to crumbs. You call your ex. He doesn't believe you. He yells from the other end. You sabotaged the house. You deliberately let the place fall apart to devalue it. His paranoia reaches its peak. He thinks you're manipulating the appraiser to buy the house cheaply later, and in retaliation, he activates the legal nuclear button, the motion to compel sale. Until now, the sale was just an idea. Now, it's a court order. The judge, tired of your fight, signs a document that takes control out of your hands. He appoints a court-appointed receiver or gives full authority to a real estate agent to sell the house, with or without your price approval. This means strangers will be entering your home, and you can't stop them. The invasion begins. Saturday morning, you're in your pajamas, having coffee, trying to maintain a routine for your children. The doorbell rings. It's a real estate agent with a couple of buyers. They enter. They don't ask permission. They walk through your living room as if it were a public museum. They open your cupboards. They criticize the color of your walls. "Wow, this kitchen is so dated," says the woman, while you stand there in the corner, feeling like an intruder in your own home. This is humiliating. It's a state-sanctioned violation of privacy. And the worst part? You have to keep the house spotless, showroom ready, 24 hours a day. No dishes in the sink, no toys on the floor. But you live there. You're stressed, working double shifts, taking care of children alone. How can you maintain a magazine-worthy house under these conditions? Anger begins to simmer, and you start playing dirty. The passive-aggressive saboteur takes over. When the next visitor arrives, you forget to turn on the air conditioning on a 35-degree day. The house is an oven. The buyers leave in 5 minutes. On the next visit, you cook fried fish with garlic half an hour before they arrive. The smell is unbearable. You let the dog bark incessantly in the yard. Your logic is desperate. If nobody buys, the judge will see that it's not worth selling and will have to let me keep it. But the market fights back. Buyers sense the desperation. They smell a divorce sale, and they are sharks. Offers start pouring in, but these aren't $480,000 offers. They're lowball offers. We offer $410,000 cash, quick closing. That's an insult. $410K barely covers the debt and fees. You'd walk away with nothing, zero. You say no, but your ex-spouse on the other end of the line says yes. He just wants to get out of debt. He doesn't care if you're left without money for the move. He wants his name cleared. The impasse goes back to court. The judge has to decide. Accept the low offer or wait for a miracle. Before we see the judge's decision, I need to know your opinion. Comment below, sabotage, if you understand who is hindering the sale in an attempt to keep the house, or sell it quickly if you think it's better to accept the loss and move on. Who is right in this war? And if you are learning about the dirty secrets of the real estate market, leave a like. This helps the algorithm spread the truth. While you two are arguing about whether or not to accept the $410,000, the bank, that silent giant, has lost patience. You stopped paying the mortgage 4 months ago, remember? You were waiting for the sale to pay everything off. The bank doesn't wait. A letter with a red stripe arrives in the registered mail. It's no longer a friendly notice. It's the notice of acceleration. The bank is saying, time's up. We don't want any more overdue payments. We want the total loan amount, $300,000 in 30 days, or the house will go to auction on the 15th of next month. The ground opens up beneath you. You no longer have months to sell. You have weeks. The wait for the right price strategy is dead. Now it's a fire sale. If the house goes to auction, it will sell for $250,000. You'll lose the house, lose all the equity, and still owe the bank. Fear takes over. Your ex-spouse panics completely and starts bombarding you with accusatory messages. This is your fault. If you had accepted the $410K offer yesterday, we would be saved. And to make matters worse, a new character emerges in the plot. The property inspector for the $410K buyer. Even with the low offer, the buyer sent an inspector. He emerges from under the house, crawlspace, shaking his head, with a flashlight in his hand and a sad smile. We have a serious problem with the foundation. And black mold in the attic. The cost of the repair, $30,000. The buyer says, I'll still buy it, but I want a $30,000 discount. My offer now is $380,000. The math is collapsing. $380,000 offer, $25,000 commissions, $325,000 bank debt with penalties. $30,000. Are you going to split $30,000? $15,000 each? After years of paying for the house, after all the fighting, after all the stress? Are you going to walk away with the price of a cheap used car? You look at the walls of your house. You see your children's future slipping down the drain. Is it worth selling for such a pittance? Or is it worth risking everything, letting the bank take it to auction, and trying a last-minute legal maneuver to block the sale? Your ex's lawyer says, sign the sale now. Your instinct says, don't sign. They're stealing your house. You're cornered. On one side, an opportunistic buyer wanting to take your home for free. On the other, the bank preparing the auction hammer. And in the middle, you and your ex, two enemies handcuffed to each other, sinking together. In the next chapter, the situation explodes. We'll see what happens when you refuse to sign the $380,000 sale at the closing table, and your ex-spouse asks the judge to have the clerk of the court sign for you. Yes, they can sell your house without your signature. And you'll find out how legally possible and emotionally devastating this is. The email arrives in your lawyer's inbox with a subject line that sounds like bureaucracy, but is actually a death sentence for your resistance. Motion to appoint Elisor. You read those words and don't understand. Elisor? What's that? It sounds like the title of a science fiction movie. But your lawyer's explanation sends chills down your spine. You refused to sign the $380,000 sale. You said no at the closing table. You put your foot down. You thought that because your name was on the deed, you had veto power. You thought, without my pen on the paper, this house isn't going anywhere. Big mistake. Your ex-spouse, furious at your refusal and desperate to avoid the bank auction, asked the judge to activate an ancient and rarely used power. He asked the court to appoint an Elisor, usually the clerk of the court, to sign the deed in your place. That's right. The judge has the power to say, since you refuse to obey my order to sell the house, I authorize this public official who has never set foot in your house to sign the sale as if he were you. Your signature, your identity as the owner, has been revoked. You have been transformed into a ghost in your own property. The hearing is humiliating. Your ex's lawyer paints you as an obstructionist, someone irrational who would rather see the house burn at auction than accept a sensible settlement. The judge looks at you over his glasses. He doesn't see your pain. He doesn't see that you think the price is unfair. He only sees a case that has been clogging his docket for months. He bangs the gavel. Motion granted. You leave the courtroom stunned. You are no longer in control of the decisions. The house is officially under contract with the opportunistic $380,000 buyer. The clerk will sign the papers next Tuesday. The sale will happen, whether you like it or not. You feel a mixture of powerless anger and violation. The legal system has just steamrolled over your will, but the nightmare has layers. And when you think you've hit rock bottom, the trapdoor opens. While the family court was busy forcing the sale, the bank, the mortgage lender, was counting down the days. The auction date is set for the 15th. The court-ordered forced sale is scheduled to close on the 20th. Do you realize the deadly mathematical problem? There's a 5-day gap. The bank will auction the house 5 days before the buyer signs the check. If the auction happens on the 15th, the sale on the 20th is automatically cancelled. The buyer leaves, the contract becomes worthless, and you lose everything. The panic shifts. Now you and your ex-spouse, who were fighting in court yesterday, must desperately join forces to plead with the bank for a postponement. You call the loss mitigation department. You send the court-signed sales contract. You shout into the phone, "Look, we have a buyer. The money is coming. We just need 5 more days. Please postpone the auction." The bank's response is cold and robotic. "Sir, madam, you have already requested a postponement twice. The investor of the note, who actually lent the money, denied the request. The auction remains scheduled for the 15th. They don't care that the money is guaranteed for the 20th. They want the house now. For the bank, a house in foreclosure is a toxic asset that they want to clean off their books before the end of the quarter. They prefer to seize the house and sell it cheaply at auction rather than wait another week for their complicated divorce sale. It's corporate bureaucracy versus human logic. You look at the calendar on the kitchen wall. 10 days until the 15th. You have a valid sales contract, signed against your will by the judge, but it may be worthless because the bank's clock is ticking faster than the court's clock. In this moment of utter despair, you receive a call from the $380,000 buyer, the one you hate, the one who's taking your house for a pittance. He says, "I heard about the auction. I can try to move the closing to the 14th, but that will cost me extra acceleration fees with my lender. I need you to lower the price by another $10,000 to cover that." This is the ultimate blackmail. The vulture knows you're in dire straits. He knows that if the auction happens, he loses the deal too. But he's betting that you're more desperate than he is. The original calculation was there would be $30,000 left to split. If you agree to lower it by another $10,000, that leaves $20,000, $10,000 each. After 10 years of paying the mortgage, replacing the roof, tending the garden, you'll walk away with $10,000. That doesn't even cover the moving truck and the deposit for the new apartment. You look at your ex. For the first time in months, you're not yelling. You're silent, defeated. The hatred has given way to bitter resignation. "We accept it," your ex says, his voice faltering. "It's better than $10,000 than nothing." You nod, swallowing your pride, swallowing your anger, swallowing your sense of justice. But before we wrap up this part, I need to provoke you. Comment below, legalized theft. If you think it's absurd that a judge can sign off on the sale of your house without your permission, or necessary if you think someone needs to unblock the process when the couple can't get along. It's a profound ethical issue. I want to see the debate ignite in the comments. And don't forget to leave a like if you're shocked by the power the court has over your private property. The deal is done. The closing is brought forward to the 14th, the day before the auction. It's a Formula One race against time. Documents fly by email. Notaries are hastily scheduled. On the 13th, you're packing the last boxes. The house is empty. The echo of your footsteps on the living room wood is eerie. Suddenly, the phone rings. It's the title company. The agent's voice is trembling. "We have a problem with the title search. An old lien has appeared that we weren't aware of. Remember that credit card your ex stopped paying 3 years ago, right before you broke up? The credit card company sued him and won. They placed a judgment lien on the house. The amount? $18,000. The calculation, you had $20,000 in profit left over, minus the $18,000 from your ex's surprise debt. That leaves $2,000, $1,000 for each of you. You fall to your knees on the floor of the empty room. You laugh. It's a hysterical laugh, the laugh of someone who has lost their sanity. All this struggle, the divorce lawyer, the defense attorney, the fight with the bank, the sabotaged visits, the humiliation in court, all this for $1,000. You worked for free for the bank and the lawyers for the last 2 years, but wait, if the profit is gone, will your ex agree to sell? Or will he prefer to blow everything up? Because right now, he's paying off his debt with your share of the profit, since the debt is joint and several in the sale. Are you going to let him take your last $9,000 to pay off his credit card? The war isn't over, it's just entered its final psychological phase. In the next chapter, we'll go to the most tense closing session in history. Day 14, the eve of the auction. Will you sign for $1,000, or will pride get the better of you, and you'll let the bank take the house the next day, just to avoid giving the other party the satisfaction of winning? And what happens when the buyer discovers that the heating system broke down the night before the keys are handed over? It's day 14, the day before the auction. The sky outside is grey, perfectly matching the atmosphere inside the title company's conference room. The air conditioning is freezing, the smell of cheap coffee permeates the air, and the silence is so heavy you can hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. On one side of the faux mahogany table is you, on the other, your ex-spouse. You don't look at each other, you don't speak. Between you lies a stack of 15-centimeter-high documents waiting for signatures that will close the most painful chapter of your lives. The scenario is one of total defeat. Remember the cruel math from part 3. After paying the mortgage, the fines, the commissions, the repairs, and your ex's liens, surprise credit card debt, you're left with a miserable $2,000 profit. $1,000 each. That's the price of your dignity. You're there to sell the home where your children grew up in exchange for a check that wouldn't even buy a new iPhone. But it's that, or let the bank sell it at auction tomorrow and end up owing thousands of dollars. The securities broker enters the room. She looks stressed. She glances at her watch. It's 2 p.m. The deadline to send the wire transfer to the creditor bank and stop the auction is 4:30 p.m. Any delay, any typing error, and the bank's computer won't process the payment. If the payment doesn't arrive today, the auction will take place tomorrow at 9 a.m., even if the house is sold on paper. It's a race against a banking algorithm that has no feelings. But before the first pen touches the paper, the agent's phone rings. She answers, pales, and looks at the two of you. "We have a problem with the final walkthrough," she says. The buyer, that vulture who's already lowered the price to $380,000, came for a final visit to the empty house a little while ago before coming to sign. "He turned on the central heating," the agent continues. "It didn't work. His technician said the compressor burned out last night." You feel like laughing. A hysterical, joker-like laugh. Of course it burned. Murphy's Law never fails in divorces. The agent puts the phone on speakerphone. The buyer yells from the other end, "I'm not closing the deal with the broken heater. The repair costs $5,000. Either you fix it now or you give me a $5,000 credit at closing, or I'm walking out and letting the bank auction it off tomorrow." The room spins. Let's recalculate. You had $2,000 left over. The buyer wants a $5,000 discount. $2,000, $5,000, $3,000 negative. You won't leave with $1,000 each. You are upside down. To sell the house today and avoid the auction, you need to take $3,000 out of your own pockets and hand it over now. This is called cash to close. Your ex-spouse explodes. "I don't have $500. I'm broke. This is your fault. You lived in the house. You broke the heater." You yell back, "I don't have any money. I sold my furniture to eat." The absurdity of the situation is palpable. You're about to lose the sale because you don't have the money to pay to sell the house. If you don't pay the $3,000, the buyer will leave. The auction is tomorrow. The bank sells it for $250,000. You'll owe $50,000, deficiency judgment. The choice is pay $3,000 now, which you don't have, or owe $50,000 tomorrow. In this moment of absolute chaos, I need you to stop and think. Comment below, pay, if you would sell everything you own to get those $3,000 and get rid of the problem, or let it burn, if you would throw in the towel and let the bank take everything just out of anger. What is the limit of your sanity? And if you're biting your nails over this story, check your subscription to the channel. What follows is a lesson in extreme negotiation. The clock reads 2:45 p.m. The securities agent says, "If we don't resolve this in 15 minutes, there won't be time to make the transfer. Wire." The two real estate agents, yours and the buyer's, are in the corner of the room, whispering. They know that if the deal falls through, they lose their hefty commissions, $22,000 combined. They return to the table looking like martyrs. "We'll cut our commissions," says your agent. "I'll give up $1,500, and his agent will give up $1,500. That covers the heater. But you leave here with zero. Not a penny in your pocket. The $1,000 profit check you were expecting has vanished. You look at each other. The relief is bittersweet. You won't have to pay, but you also won't receive anything. Years of investment, renovations, decorating, monthly payments, it all resulted in zero. You're leaving this real estate experience break even, but emotionally bankrupt. Where do I sign? You ask, your voice dead. The signing ceremony begins. It's a 100-page marathon. Identity declaration, sign. Deed transfer, sign. Non-occupation declaration, sign. With each page turned, you feel a piece of your history being ripped away. Your ex signs on the other side. His hand trembles. Maybe he's also feeling the weight of failure, or maybe it's just nicotine withdrawal. It doesn't matter anymore. You're just two strangers dissolving a failed partnership. It's 3:45 p.m. The last page is signed. The agent grabs the papers, rushes to the computer, and initiates the bank transfer to the mortgage creditor. The money has been sent, she says. Now we need to pray that Fedwire, Federal Transfer System, doesn't delay and that the bank processes the write-off before tomorrow's auction. You hand over the keys. Those metal keys you first held with such hope 10 years ago, you place them on the table. They make a metallic, clinking sound, like the period at the end of a sentence. You stand up. You don't shake your ex's hand. You don't shake the broker's hand. You leave the room, get in the elevator, and go down to the parking garage. You get into your old car. You don't have a house. You don't have money. But you do have a piece of paper that says sold. You think it's over, I'm free. You drive to your tiny rented apartment. You sleep for the first time in months without waking up to nightmares about the auction. But the next morning, at 10 a.m., your phone rings. It's your lawyer. His voice sounds strange. We have a problem, he says. The bank system didn't process the sale in time. The auctioneer didn't receive the cancellation notice. Your heart stops. What do you mean, you stammer? The house was sold at auction this morning. The bank sold the house you sold yesterday. Welcome to double sale nightmare. You have a signed contract selling the house to buyer A. The bank has a completed auction selling the house to buyer B, two new owners. One house, and you're in the middle being sued for fraud by both sides. You thought the signing was the end? Bureaucracy is a monster that has an afterlife. In the next and final chapter, we'll see how to untangle this impossible legal knot. We'll find out who really gets the house, whether you'll go to jail for selling something that was no longer yours, and the final lesson on debt forgiveness that could save you or destroy you on next year's income tax. The nightmare has an epilogue. The air in the lawyer's office is thin. You feel like you can't fill your lungs. The phrase double sale echoes in your head like a prison sentence. How is this possible? You signed the papers. You handed over the keys. You saw the confirmation of the bank transfer. How could the bank have sold your house, which was no longer yours, to someone else this morning? The scene is one of total war. On one side, buyer A, the $380,000 vulture, is furious. He has a signed contract and possession of the keys. He's already sent contractors to the house. On the other side, buyer B, the auction investor, has a receipt from the sheriff. He bought the house for $250,000 in court, thinking he'd made the deal of the century. He's going to the house right now to change the locks. Locks that buyer A just changed yesterday. And in the middle of this shootout, there you are. The bank claims it didn't receive the money on time. The automated system triggered the auction. To the bank, you committed fraud. You sold a frozen asset. This is where the unsung and expensive hero of this story comes in. That item on the closing list you thought was just a useless fee. Title insurance. Remember that stressed-out agent from Part 4? Her company issued a policy guaranteeing buyer A that the house was clean. Now, the multi-million-dollar problem has landed in the insurer's lap. It's no longer you versus bank. Now it's insurance lawyers versus bank lawyers. It's Godzilla versus King Kong, and you're just the building getting trampled in the middle of the fight. For the next 3 weeks, your life is a bureaucratic nightmare. The sale money, $380,000, is in limbo, frozen in an escrow account. The bank won't accept the payment because it says the house has already been sold at auction. Buyer A sues you for breach of contract. Buyer B sues you for wrongful possession. You don't have the money to pay a defense attorney. You use Google to learn terms like wrongful foreclosure and quiet title action. Finally, the proof appears. The smoking gun. The securities insurance company tracks the Fedwire confirmation number, the American Central Bank system. The money left the insurance company's account at 3:58 p.m. on the 14th. The money entered the creditor bank's account at 4:15 p.m. on the 14th. The auction was at 9 a.m. on the 15th. The mathematical truth is revealed. The bank made a mistake. The debt was paid before the hammer fell. The bank sold a house that no longer had an active mortgage. It was a clerical error, a glitch in the system, a corporate incompetence that almost destroyed 3 lives. The judge rescinds the auction sale. Buyer B gets his money back and leaves cursing. Buyer A is confirmed as the rightful new owner. You breathe a sigh of relief. It's over. The criminal fraud case is off the table. But don't celebrate yet. The financial system has a long and vengeful memory. Let's talk about the post-war period. You log into your banking app. Your balance is $0, remember? You came out of foreclosure with no profit whatsoever. You open Credit Karma to see your credit score. You expect that now that the mortgage is paid off, paid in full, your score will go up. You see a number, 520. But I paid, you yell at the screen. Yes, you paid. But the damage from the last 12 months is permanent. 4 late payments, 30, 60, 90, 120 days. A lis pendens foreclosure proceedings entry is registered in public records. This remains on your record for 7 years. To the financial world, you are a leper. Try to rent a decent apartment. The landlord pulls up your file, sees the words foreclosure proceedings, even if it hasn't been completed, and denies your application. You are forced to live in places where they don't ask for credit checks, and those places aren't safe. And then months later, you're driving. Unintentionally, habit takes you back to your old neighborhood. You turn the corner. Your heart aches. There it is, your house. But it's not yours anymore. The lawn you planted has been ripped up. The tree your children used to climb has been cut down. The house has been painted a modern, cold grey color. Out front a sign, sold, $550,000. Buyer A, the vulture, did a quick $30,000 renovation, flip, and sold the house for $550,000. Let's do his math. Bought it from you for $380K, $30K renovation tar and $410K cost. Sold for $550K. Vulture's profit, $140,000. You pull over, tears well up. That $140,000 was yours. It was your equity. It was your kids' college money. It was your retirement. But you lost that money, not because the market was bad, not because the bank is bad. You lost it because you and your ex-spouse believed in the fantasy of cash-out refinance. You lost it because you were greedy. You tried to keep everything, the house and the money, and ended up with nothing. You lost it because you spent 6 months fighting in court instead of selling the house on day 1 of the divorce when it was still worth $600,000 and in good condition. This is the brutal lesson no one tells you. In a divorce, time is the greatest destroyer of wealth. Every day you hold onto the house trying to win against your ex is a day the bank profits from interest and the house depreciates due to lack of maintenance. Inertia cost you $140,000. Your pride cost you $140,000. I want to ask one final question, and I want you to be honest in the comments. This question defines who learned the lesson. Comment here, peace, if you would sell the house immediately at the beginning of the divorce to avoid this hell, or war, if you think it's worth fighting to the end for the family home, no matter the cost. I read every comment. I want to know if I changed anyone's mind today. You're sitting in your rented apartment. The walls are thin. You hear your neighbor coughing. But for the first time in 2 years, you don't owe anyone anything. The phone has stopped ringing. There are no more lawyers. There's no more bank. You look in the mirror. You have more gray hairs. You look tired. But you are free. You learned the hard way that home isn't made of bricks and mortgages. Home is where you have peace. And if home costs you your peace, it's just a luxury prison. If this 5-part saga opened your eyes to the harsh reality of the American real estate market, if it taught you something that no investment guru tells you, do yourself a favor. Subscribe to the channel. We are the resistance against financial ignorance. In the next video, we'll enter another minefield: inheritance wars. What happens when parents die without a will and 3 siblings fight over an old house? Spoiler, the lawyer gets everything. Until then, keep your payments up to date, your contracts signed, and for God's sake, if you get divorced, sell the house immediately. I'm out.